Hi there, I am Monica Burns, and welcome to the new Easy EdTech podcast episode. As a former New York City public school teacher and current EdTech consultant, I started this podcast in 2019 to share my favorite classroom tech integration tips and stories from my experiences. Each episode offers practical ideas for you to try, share, or save for later. Be sure to check out classtechtips.com/podcast for today's show notes and resources. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or another favorite podcast app, you'll find the show notes link in the description too. This episode is sponsored by my Easy EdTech Club. I open the doors to new members just a few times a year, and you can grab your spot from July 20th to July 31st. It's a special monthly membership where I share professional learning resources for educators interested and excited about using digital strategies for teaching and learning. Learn more at classtechtips.com/club, or simply send me a DM on your favorite social media platform and tell me that you want a spot. Again, that's classtechtips.com/club. This week's episode is titled First Week of School Activities, some must-try activities for the beginning of the school year. You might have your plans underway already for the first few weeks of school, and we know that the first week or two provides a prime opportunity to set the tone for a year of successful learning. Making the first week engaging, fun, and educational is truly key to sparking students' curiosity and their motivation. And there's plenty of first week of class activities to choose from. And today, I've got a few that I want to spotlight. We're going to take a look at a little less than a dozen first week of class activities. These combine education and technology, and it's great for kicking off the school year so that you can introduce new tools, build routines, and of course, get kids participating in an interactive and memorable experience that can maybe even help them learn about each other, explore spaces in your classroom and school. I just love things that check a whole bunch of boxes. And I think that these are ones that you can tailor to your groups, whether you are working with students every day, you're supporting educators in a classroom setting, or you're looking for some ideas to share with your colleagues. Now, I'm going to link out to a list of the ones that I mentioned. I'll link out to some of the tools that I give a shout out to in this episode. And of course, if there is one or two that you love and want to try, feel free to send the link to this episode to a colleague or someone who maybe you do some team teaching or planning with. So let's go ahead and jump into these first week of school activity ideas. Number one on today's list is a digital scavenger hunt. And if you've been in my spaces, whether it's the blog classtechtips.com or the Easy EdTech podcast like you're listening to right now, you know that I love QR codes. And you can use a series of QR codes to set up a scavenger hunt for students. This could include questions where kids find items or complete tasks around your classroom or around your school building or around a space. Maybe it's a media center, depending on your role as you're listening today. A digital scavenger hunt can help kids familiarize themselves with their surroundings and work collaboratively with a new group of classmates. Next up is to have kids create intro videos. Using tools like Microsoft Flip or Adobe Express, they can create short introduction videos. I'm a big fan of Flip, or Flipgrid as it used to be known. Adobe Express is another favorite. I've done some work with their team, and you might use one of these or another favorite video creation tool for kids to share their favorite summer activities or hobbies, or even what they're looking forward to learning this year. It's a great way to help kids get to know each other and, of course, to help you learn a little bit more about each student. Even if it's a familiar group, some of their interests and things they're excited about may have changed since the summertime. Number 3 on the list are collaborative class expectations. You can use a favorite tool like Padlet to collaboratively create class expectations. Each student can contribute an expectation that they think is important to a shared collaborative space like Padlet. This is a kind of activity that can help students feel more invested in the class and really teaches them about navigating a space that promotes online collaboration at the same time. So you might ask students to turn and talk with a partner before having them jump into this digital space, and then you can use their contributions to make a more streamlined or concise version of what they expect everyone to do in order to participate fully in your classroom. So far, we've got 3 ideas: a digital scavenger hunt, introduction videos, and a collaborative class expectations activity. You might also try something that feels a little techie, right? Or techie spin, I should say, on kind of a timeless activity, which is a time capsule. So this is an activity that is pretty popular, right? Doing a time capsule maybe at the beginning of a new decade or a new school year, something that you can unwrap sometime in the future. So you might try this with a digital spin using something like Google Slides or another favorite slide-based tool, and have kids create a digital time capsule of their first week of school. They might include pictures, drawings, text to describe their experiences and feelings. Now, this is a great way to introduce a creative tool, something that you could use throughout the school year. And then during the last couple weeks of school, they can look back and see how much they've grown and changed. So I love a big reveal, but if you're like me, sometimes the school year can escape you. So you might want to set a reminder on your calendar or like an appointment on your calendar you use all the time to remind you that you want to revisit these during the busy end of the school year. 5th on our list of must-try first week of school activities are a virtual field trip. Now, regular listeners of the podcast know I am a big fan of virtual field trips. Earlier this year, I shared a list of a dozen or so totally free websites for summer virtual field trips. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. I know I also did a roundup for Earth Day. I think it was Earth Day this year, but honestly, it could have been Earth Day last year that I put together that big list. But whether you use virtual field trips frequently or just every once in a while, you could introduce a virtual field trip as one of your first week of class activities. Maybe using a platform like Google Arts and Culture to explore different parts of the world without leaving your classroom. This is a good first week activity to help introduce kids to places you're going to explore or learn about, maybe a setting of a book or something you'll study in social studies or science, something that you'll come back to later in the school year. Our next first week of school activity idea is storytelling with coding. If you're going to explore computer science skills this school year, you might want to introduce students to basic coding with a tool like Scratch. There's others, but that's one just to put on your maybe list. It's a free programming language designed for kids, and your kids could create interactive stories, animations, games, you name it. It's a unique and engaging way to foster creativity and critical thinking skills. And if you are interested about coding or not really sure where to start, maybe you're just kind of wrapping your head around it, I definitely encourage you to scroll back or click on the link in the show notes to episode 153, where I talk with Lori Guyan all about this topic. Next up on our list of must-try first week of school activity ideas is to set up a classroom blog. If you plan on blogging with students this school year, one of your first week of class activities might include setting up a classroom blog. So this is a digital space where kids can share their thoughts and experiences throughout the school year. It's a good way to encourage writing and digital citizenship, and there are lots of choices for building a website. You might explore Google Sites, Adobe Express, or even the website tool within Canva. So if you think that you're going to do something throughout the whole year, the first weeks of the school year are a great time to just set it up, right? Get that routine started. So if classroom blogs are on the list, that might be one thing that you try. Another favorite activity that you could explore during the first few weeks of the school year, or that first week like we're focused on for this episode, is a collaborative word cloud. This is a great quick activity. So if some of the others on the list feel like a bigger investment in time than you're ready to make, you might try out a word cloud activity during the first week of school. If you've joined me for a workshop or webinar this year, you know I love word clouds. I often start off presentations using a tool like Mentimeter to create word clouds together. I did this recently with a group. I use Mentimeter a lot. I was just up in Rochester. I'm actually in Kansas City as I'm recording this episode for you. I know we're going to use it in the workshop that I'm doing tomorrow. And so Mentimeter is a favorite where you can ask questions and kids respond, and you can do it with the word cloud feature in Mentimeter. It's definitely a favorite. So this might be something like share a word related to their expectations or goals for the school year, or share a word that connects to their favorite genre of books. It's totally up to you what the prompt is. Now, these types of first week activities create a visual representation of what students are thinking and feeling at a moment of time. You can take a snapshot of it and revisit it later in the school year too. Now, recently on the blog, I did a list of interactive timeline activities, and you might try out a timeline during the first week of school. You could use one of the interactive timeline creation tools on that list. I'll link out to it here in the show notes. And this could be an opportunity for you to introduce a timeline that highlights key dates and events for the school year, helping students understand what to expect and build anticipation for special events during the school year. Like I mentioned, there's a handful of timeline tools, and in my recent blog post, 12 websites to make timelines with students, I'll link out to it in the show notes for this. I'm going to highlight some of them that are my favorites in that blog post, and you can check that one out if you want to explore it. Now, last on our list of activity ideas are creativity challenge. Now, at the start of the last school year, I shared a creativity challenge from Adobe Education that I really loved using one of their templates. I've done some work with their team and I'm a big fan of everything Adobe. And you might take a spin on their challenge, on their remixable template, and have students introduce themselves by creating graphics using this tool. There are lots of templates inside of Adobe Express, so you don't have to use the remixable one that I'll link to in the show notes here. You might find another that you love or have students search for a template and use that for their intro activity, a part of a creativity challenge in your class. Now, the main goal of this first week of class activity, no matter which one you choose, is to create an environment of excitement, engagement, enthusiasm for the year ahead. And so no matter which one of these 10 tech-ish activities you choose, hopefully you'll have an opportunity for a different spin on an icebreaker, helping kids introduce each other to or learn a little bit about each other. And at the same time, you can introduce them to some EdTech tools that you're going to use throughout the school year. So like I mentioned earlier, I love the idea of accomplishing a whole lot in one sitting. And this might help you address a few of the goals that you have during the first week of school. So let's make this EdTech easy with a few key points from today's episode. Establish routines in a fun way. Provide opportunities for collaboration. Introduce tech tools that will be used all year. Remember, you can find the show notes and the full list of resources from this episode at classtechtips.com/podcast and finding today's episode number 225. This episode is sponsored by my Easy EdTech Club. I open the doors to new members just a few times a year, and you can grab your spot from July 20th to July 31st. It's a special monthly membership where I share professional learning resources for educators interested and excited about using digital strategies for teaching and learning. Learn more at classtechtips.com/club, or simply send me a DM on your favorite social media platform and tell me that you want a spot. Again, that's classtechtips.com/club. Thanks for joining us for another Tuesday edition of the Easy EdTech podcast. Remember to hit follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite app to have next week's episode ready for you on Tuesday morning. Feel free to share takeaways from this episode with friends or colleagues in a quick email or text, or even on social media. And don't hesitate to tag me at Class Tech Tips if you have any questions.